Good morning, dear students. So today we are going to learn a new chapter called chapter number 6, Accounting for Share Capital. You know that you have a two textbook prescribed by the NCERT, book number 1 and book number 2. Book number 2, in the book number 2, this is first chapter called Accounting for Share Capital. Share capital, the word share capital. First you studied about the sole trading, partnership and joint stock company. Capital, money contributed by a owner to start a business. For example, in sole trading concern, sole trader will going to contribute a capital or investment to start a business, that is called capital. The capital contributed by a sole trader, of course it's a sole trading concern or capital. Similarly, partnership. In partnership, partners will going to contribute a capital to start a partnership firm. There also it's called as a capital. But in joint stock company, when you come to joint stock company, for a joint stock company, capital is called as share capital. Capital is called as a share capital because the capital is contributed by a shareholder. Okay, of course you studied in first PUC different types of shares like preference share, equity share, public company, private company, features of company, meaning of company, you have studied like that. Okay, so that's what in this chapter there first PUC you studied about the meaning of joint stock company, features and types of companies. Okay, but in this chapter, how company will going to issue the shares, types of shares, and what is the journal entry for issue of share. Okay, so before going to this the share capital, okay, joint stock company. What is the meaning of joint stock company? Of course, Joint Stock Company Act, Companies Act of 2013. I think you remember Indian Companies Act of 2013. Earlier we used to call it as 1956. Companies Act of 1956 has given one definition. Joint stock company, of course it is to be registered, a company registered under Companies Act of, now it is called 2013. A company should be registered under the Companies Act of 2013. It is an artificial person, created by law, having perpetual succession, separate entity and common seal. This you have studied in first PUC, meaning of joint stock company, definition given by 1956 or what you call now it's 2013. Okay, so company, what is the meaning of company? Company should be registered, any company. Okay, the company should be registered under the Companies Act of 2013, Indian Companies Act of 2013. It is an artificial person created by law, having perpetual succession, separate entity and common seal. Okay, that's what the meaning of joint stock company. So define joint stock company, or what do you mean by joint stock company? Of course it's important for 2 marks. The meaning of joint stock company. Okay, moving on to the next part. Features of joint stock company. Of course this is also important for 2 marks. Write any 2 features of joint stock company. Question may ask like that. So I have written some of the features. Number 1, artificial person created by law. Number 2, separate legal entity. Limited liability. Number 3, limited liability. Number 4, perpetual succession. And number 5, transferability of share. Only few are written. Still we have more, but only it's important for 2 marks. That's the reason only I restricted features for only 5. First one, artificial person created by law. As I already told you, any joint stock company should be registered under the Companies Act of 2013. Earlier 1956. So company should be registered as per the Companies Act of 2013 should follow the rules and regulation of Companies Act of 2013. That is what? Created by law. Any company is created by law. Company to start a company, it has to go as per the law, Companies Act. Even for winding up, even to close also, if any company wants to close, they have to follow the rules and regulation prescribed by Companies Act, whether it is 1956 or 2013. So that is what? It is an artificial person created by law, registered under Companies Act of 2013. Okay, first one. Second one, separate legal entity. Separate legal entity, of course, Giant Stock Company is a separate legal entity. The owner is what you called as a shareholder. Shareholder separate from its member. That's what. Company should be separated from its member. Shareholders have no rights to participate in day-to-day activities of the company. Shareholders, I repeat, shareholders have no rights to participate in the day-to-day activities of the company. Okay, they have invested money. They are going to get dividend once in a year, but they do not have any rights to participate in day-to-day activities of the company. They can attend AGM once in a year, that's called annual general meeting. That's what? Separate from its member. The controller of the company can maintain the company. That's what you call board of directors, CEO, president, vice president. There are some management committee. These people can control the business. They are answerable to the shareholder. Okay, so that's what. Giant Stock Company is called separate legal entity. The company should be separated from its members, separated from the shareholders. Okay, moving on to the next one. Number 3, limited liability. The liability of every shareholder is limited. The liability of every shareholder is limited to the extent of unpaid amount of share. To the extent of unpaid amount of share. What is that? The limited to the extent of unpaid amount of share. For example, a share value is 100 rupees. For example, a share value is 100 rupees. Company will not going to take this 100 rupees in one installment. Okay, it will going to take it like application, allotment, first call, final call, like that. Okay, out of 100, company have collected 70 rupees as share from the shareholder. Out of 100, 70 rupees as collected from the shareholder. But the remaining amount, 30 rupees, the remaining amount 30 rupees will be called in future. Okay, so at the time of winding up, company, of course, they are going to call it for 30 rupees to pay that amount from the shareholder. That's what. Limited to the extent of unpaid amount of share. Limited. The liability of the shareholder is limited. Okay, next. Perpetual succession. Perpetual succession. One word you heard in first PUC, men may come, men may go, but I go forever. I think you remember that word. Men may come, men may go, but I go forever. Okay, that means any shareholder may come, any shareholder may go, but company will be running for a longer period. Death, insanity or insolvency of any shareholder will not be affected. Will not be affected to the running of Giant Stock Company. That's what. Perpetual succession. Men may come, men may go, but I go forever. So, death, insanity or insolvency of any shareholder will not be affected to the running of Giant Stock Company. Okay, that is perpetual succession. Next, moving on to the next one. Transferability of share. Of course, the shares can be transferred. The shares can be transferred from one person to another or one shareholder to another. Only public limited company shares can be transferred, not private company. Okay, that's what. Transferability of shares. Transferability of interest. First piece you heard the transferability of interest. That's what. Interest in the ownership can be transferred. Shares can be transferred from one person to another. That is transferability of shares. Okay, so that's what the features of Giant Stock Company. Important for 2 marks. Any 2 you can write in the exam. Moving on to the next part. Okay, next, moving on to the next part. Types of company. So in first piece you studied about this private company, public company. Okay, so types of company on the basis of members. On the basis of member is divided into 2, private company and public company. On the basis of liability of its members, company divided into three: company limited by shares, company limited by guarantee, and unlimited company. On the basis of member, private company. Yeah, of course, private company, you studied features. Private company is a company which is not a public company, and a private company must have minimum paid up capital of rupees 1 lakh or more, minimum paid up capital of rupees 1 lakh or more, minimum 2 members, maximum 200, restricted to 200. Company will not going to invite the public for purchasing of shares and debenture. That's what, no invitation to the public to purchase the company shares and debentures. That is private company. Next, this type of company shares are not dealing in the stock exchange. Private company shares are not dealing in the stock exchange, and private company must end with the word private limited. Okay, first PC you have written 1 to 5 features. Okay, that's what the meaning of meaning of private company. Private company, minimum 1 lakh or more, minimum 2 member, maximum 200. There is no invitation to the public for purchase or subscription of shares and debenture. Company shares are not dealing in the stock exchange and must end with the word private limited. So that is about the private company. Moving on to the next, that is public company. A public company is a company which is having not less than minimum paid up capital of rupees 5 lakh or more, minimum paid up capital of rupees 5 lakh or more, and minimum number is restricted to 7, minimum is 7, and maximum no limit, unlimited, anybody can become, any number of shareholders can become a member of a public company. Then of course company will going to invite the public for subscription of shares and debenture. So there is an invitation. Company will going to give a prospectus. I think you remember prospectus. That's what, invitation. Company will going to invite the public for subscription of shares and debenture. That is public company. Yes, this type of company shares are dealing in stock exchange. This type of company shares are dealing in the stock exchange and must end with the word called limited or company limited. Okay. So public company, minimum paid up capital of rupees 5 lakh or more, minimum 7 member, maximum no limit, and of course public company will going to invite the public for subscription of shares and debenture, and this company shares are dealing in the stock exchange and must end with the word limited. So this is about private company and public company. Next, on the basis of liability of members, it's divided into 3. Company limited by shares, company limited by guarantee, unlimited company. Company limited by share. What is a company limited by share? A company liability of member is limited to the face value of the share. Liability of member is limited to the face value of the share. What is that face value? For example, a company share is, let me take 100 rupees. Company share is 100 rupees. Okay. So company one share 100 rupees will be collected from the shareholder. Okay. So at the time of winding up, okay, only it is restricted to 100. For example, a person has paid 70 rupees. A person has paid to the company to become a shareholder 70 rupees. Application money, allotment money, first call. Okay. The remaining 30 rupees is not yet paid to the company. So company will going to call at the time of winding up, company will going to call, you have paid 70 rupees, you have not paid 30 rupees, so you pay 30 rupees. So your money is restricted to 100. That's what. Shares is limited. Liability of member is limited to the face value of share. Okay. When a company asset is less than liability, when a company asset is less than liability, company will not going to take any extra money from the shareholder. No extra money will be taken from the shareholder apart from whatever capital invested. Okay. Out of 100, 70 rupees he has paid, 30 is not paid, means 30 rupees will be collected from the shareholder, not extra money. That is what, company limited by share. Liability of member is limited to the face value of the share. Okay. Next, company limited by guarantee. Company limited by guarantee in the sense, at the time of purchasing the share, some of the shareholder will going to give guarantee. At the time of winding up, if a company asset is less than liability, from my side, I am giving a guarantee for 1 lakh rupee. 1 lakh rupee. So that is what? Giving guarantee. So, that shareholder not only losing the face value of the money at the time of winding up, also guarantee amount if asset is less than liability. Okay. So, when asset is less than liability, company will going to call to pay the guarantee amount. That is what liability of member is limited to guarantee amount. So, he has to give a guarantee amount. Okay. Next, unlimited company. Unlimited company means there is no limit. Unlimited company in India very rarely, we can't see this type of company in India. Okay. So, liability of the member is no limit. Okay. Okay, moving on to the next part, share capital of a company. What is the share capital of a company? Capital raised by the company by the issue of shares. Capital raised by the company by the issue of shares is what you called as a share capital of a company. Of course, you studied equity share preferential like that. Company will going to raise a share from the shareholder. Okay, so that's what capital raised by the company by the issue of shares is what you called as share capital of a company. Okay, then what is the meaning of share? I think you heard the word share. A share is a share in the share capital of a company. A share is a share in the share capital of a company, that word. Okay. So, that is what the share capital of a company is divided into small unit. The share capital of a company is divided into small unit. Each unit is called as a share. The share capital of a company divided. For example, a share capital of a company. Share capital of a company 10 lakh. Share capital of a company is 10 lakh divided by 10,000 shares. Divided by 10,000 shares. Okay. So, when you divide it by 10 lakh by 10,000 shares, you are getting 100 rupees. You are getting 100 rupees. That 100 rupees is what you call 1 unit. That 100 rupees is what you called as 1 unit. That 1 unit is what you called as a share. Okay. So, if anybody wants to become a shareholder, they have to pay 100 rupees. 1 share. If he going to purchase, he is also a shareholder. Okay. That is what. The share capital of a company divided into small unit. Share capital of a company divided into small unit. That small unit is what you called as a share. Okay. So, next, shareholder. Who is called as a shareholder? One who going to purchase the share, whether equity share or preference share. One who going to purchase the share is what you called as a shareholder. They are called as a members of the company. They are called owners. Equity shareholders are what you called as the owner of the company. Okay. Next, types of share. Of course, public limited company will going to issue 2 types of share. That is called equity share or ordinary share and preference share. 2 types of share. Equity share. What is the meaning of equity share? Equity shareholders do not carry preferential right. Do not carry preferential right at the time of payment of dividend and at the time of winding up a repayment of capital. First preference will not be given. So, equity shareholders do not carry preferential right in respect of payment of dividend and repayment of capital at the time of winding up, and equity share dividends are fluctuating and they are called the owner of the company. They are called the owner of the company and they have a voting rights. They can elect the board of directors. Okay. Next, preference share. What do you mean by preference share? Preference share carry preferential right in respect of dividend, payment of dividend and repayment of capital. At the time of winding up a repayment of capital, first preference will be given to the preference shareholder. So, preference shares are those shares which carry preferential right in respect of payment of dividend and repayment of capital at the time of winding up, and they do not carry any voting rights and their dividends are fluctuating. Okay, that's what preference share. Okay. So, with this I will going to end up the today's session. So, we will meet in the next class. Thank you. Have a nice day.